Sure. Yeah. Um, I'm Alina, and thanks for having me on this virtual fireside chat. Um, my journey with SEO hasn't been too long. It's only been about 2 to 3 years since I dipped my feet into full-time SEO in an in-house team. I started off with a huge B2B brand in India. They're called Freshworks, and I joined as a content writer, moved up to being in brand marketing, and then I had the opportunity to work in product marketing with a CRM product they were building. From there, I went to join Sales Hacker, which was and is continues to they continue to be one of the most popular B2B sales blogs. Had the amazing opportunity of going through an acquisition by Outreach.io. From there, I followed my boss, Gaetano, to Nextiva, which is home right now. Nextiva is this voice over IP company. We build business phone systems for all kinds of businesses, mainly focused on small to medium-sized businesses. And I work on the in-house team with Nextiva. We're a tight team of about just 6 people, so we try to do as much as we can, and we try to limit the headcount too intentionally, because there's just more focused attention on the different verticals that we want to target. Personally, I was born and brought up in Kerala in India, and I enjoy this really cool lifestyle prior to COVID. But when I was just like on, always packed with my bags and just always traveling, and whenever I can, I spend a few months in India. Otherwise, I'm in Scottsdale or like pretty much anywhere in the world where we can find high-speed internet.
Wow.
Yeah. My husband, is the same too. He works for a data company they call Mixtank, and he's head of sales there. And so, yeah, we're just kind of tag teaming on this B2B SaaS journey together. So, yeah.
That's great. So from what I understand, you've been working remotely for a bit. So you work
Yeah.
remotely for a bit. But remote working is very new to everybody around the world right now with
Yeah.
COVID. Do you have some tips and things that you do that help you for people who have recently started doing this?
Just right off the bat, I have to say it's like extremely difficult. It seems great when you're following like a 9 to 5 schedule and always at work. You think remote work might be a good break from all the bustle at the office and like no distractions. That's well and great for like a few days, maybe even a few weeks. But then after that, I feel like having been at an office, like a physical office, for like 2 years in my career, and then transitioning to an entirely virtual setup, it can take a huge toll on you. It's extremely emotionally taxing because you are 100% in charge of your schedule. So in my case, and even with my husband's, we're on Pacific time, no matter what time zone we're actually in. So even if I'm in India, I'm still like up until 4 or 5 a.m. my time, and that's when my day gets over. And so it takes a lot of like preparation. It takes a lot of like mental conditioning to be able to still be productive, still stay in touch with all your teammates, and still like show up for your family at the same time. So I feel like it's fine, like to anybody out there who is not able to be as productive or not able to hit your productive strides being in a virtual setup right now, I would say don't beat yourself up. You're already like stuck at home all the time because of everything that's going on around us, but at the same time, like, we all go through it. It's fine. And then the only other thing that I would want to stress on, and I know like the internet is full of virtual workspace setup tips right now, but invest in your setup. I didn't do it for a long time, and I thought, what, it's fine because I'm always traveling. I don't really need a setup when I'm home. But it makes a huge difference just to have how many of the screens you want, how much ever big you want it. Just choosing your desk, making sure it's clutter free, and like investing in a good mouse or like a nice ergonomic keyboard. You're sitting in this chair for like 6 to 7 hours a day, so get a really good one. Don't skimp on that. And yeah, just a great lighting, so you look good on these video meetings. Yeah, I would say just like these two things that I think are most important, apart from like a million other tips that I could talk about, but these two being the most important to me.
For sure, the setup makes a lot of difference. When I was
Yeah.
working from home, I really needed my space that was basically my office, and that
Right.
really helped because it was like a routine.
Yeah,
Um, for
for sure.
sure. Okay. Um, that was great for everybody who really needs these tips, which is a lot of people right now. Okay, let's dive into the topic then. Let's start with something small. So, if you had to describe the relationship between SEO and content marketing, what would you compare it with?
Yeah, I didn't have to think too long and hard about this, but I would compare it to anything that takes a long time to come to fruition. So, and like the most basic example I can give you would probably be farming, because farming is, while underestimated, like in a lot of companies where SEO is seen as an afterthought, it's still a very essential part of any economy.
Mhm.
And, it requires a wide range of skills as well. It's not just about sowing, it's not just about reaping, it's about like what kind of tools you use, how you, conditioning the different crops while it's, in, and like you're waiting for it to harvest. And it involves both complex and simple processes. It involves a lot of people, so there's teamwork. You have to pay attention to the weather, just like how we pay attention to our competition or like SERP changes when it comes to SEO. Um, and it needs consistent attention. Like you just cannot do like step one and step two and ignore it and like hope everything falls into place. So
For sure.
not to sound cheesy or corny, but in short, you reap what you sow, and that's exactly how it is with SEO. Yeah.
Wow, I would have never thought of comparing it with farming, but I I understand completely. It's
Yeah.
such a long process. You can't just turn it on and off. It's
Yeah.
a constant process. Okay. Wow. So in the past 12 months, you've grown the organic blog traffic at Nextiva with your team, of course, by
Mhm.
around 500%. How were you able to do this?
um, so the numbers obviously just keep fluctuating, so it goes up and down. But having said that, I think the long story short here would be that there is no silver bullet. There's no like one trick pony that we had. We literally did all the motions that any SEO team would do, which wasn't happening prior to a few members, joining Nextiva. And like, my boss and I, we had a good background in SEO, especially my boss, like growing sales hackers audience to substantial size, like sub 10K subscribers, sorry, 100K subscribers, and like getting our organic traffic up to about 400% before we got acquired. We brought all of that knowledge into Nextiva. The good thing about Nextiva was that we already had a solid foundation to start building upon. And so biggest things we did was uh, content pruning, just kind of because we had a lot of dated content. I think our blog began in 2010. And so when I joined 2018, we had so much legacy content that we needed to go through, just to make sure that we're removing anything that's stale, consolidating anything, redirecting duplicate content, or, just kind of making sure that it's cohesive with the existing stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and I could keep going on and on about just the content pruning process, but just like that's one of the huge things that we did initially, followed by like our blog redesign. And just that, like I don't still see a lot of like legacy or like even enterprise B2B companies paying attention to this, but like user experience is so big, and with every Google update, they're placing more attention or like importance on the actual user experience, on mobile or like even on web. So the redesign helped us just kind of categorize all the different content, also helped us refocus our attention on what audiences we wanted to tackle, especially when we were working on the category page. We thought, okay, which categories might make sense and which don't. Placing the right CTAs, grabbing subscribers, all of that went into the redesign. Simultaneously, we worked on creating or like revamping our editorial standards, just to make sure that we have, while we were pruning our content, the new content coming in met that new standard that we wanted it to follow. And like then what we went into was just making sure that we're riding that new wave that we have, which includes, mapping what every piece of content, like what part of the funnel does it go into, and what should be the final CTA because of that. How can we make it unique compared to what's already out there? Because almost all SERPs are saturated, especially for the high CPC or like high traffic keywords. So how do you make it better? Are your pages faster? Is it easier to convert on your pages? Then we were thinking about formats, like blog post versus ebook versus video, the different channels that we were going to promote all of this on, and just our content production process too. I think we've come a long way in the last 2 years, from just Gaetano and I managing everything content in Nextiva to having like a 6-member team, each of us doing very unique things on the team, but at the same time the end result is more organic traffic, more bottom of the funnel traffic, and hence more leads and thus more conversions. Like that's the entire focus for us, the 6 of us. We also started working on our PR and link building strategies, just like more collaborations, more stories that were not told until like we had a set strategy in place. Clearly, like all of this will only work if we have technical SEO that can kind of just supercharge all of this. So we have dedicated marketing engineers. So all thanks to them. Like we couldn't do this without them. Just making sure page speed is on point, image optimization, fixing broken links. Like is the like I was saying before, like making the page mobile friendly. And yeah, this was some of the motions that we went through. And over the years, now that we have all of these basic foundational building blocks in place, we now start focusing on like, the type of content that we want to produce. And and then that goes into looking at competitors, listening to sales calls, or like looking at current traffic drivers, and then figuring out what other long tail opportunities we can get from there. So yeah, this is this is like my life's work. So yeah, I could keep talking about it, but
no, that's great. I just wanted to, for example, if somebody were still looking to do this, how much time do you spend publishing a blog on Nextiva? Like, how do you divide between research and actual creation of content?
Yeah. Again, we don't rush it, and I don't think there's a cookie cutter sort of a time period for every blog post, because some are very research intensive, whereas some might not be. We don't spend a lot of time with technical reviews when it comes to, as in content reviews, when it comes to some of our awareness topics, because it still needs to be high level for a buyer that's in the market for VoIP products. So it needs to be simple, but at the same time, when you look at the more technical topics further down the funnel, where we're answering technical questions and more specific questions, I feel like research time goes up over there. And we have both in-house writers as well as freelancers that we work with on a regular basis. So this research is broken up between the two teams, if you can call it that way. We never, like I was just talking about this on a different podcast I was recording last week too, we never dump a topic in word count to any writer, be it in-house or freelance, and say, you know what, go run with it and publish the almighty blog that's going to get us on page 1 and like, rank 1. So for us, it's a very collaborative process, right from researching the topic to identifying the right keyword, to making sure that we're building the right kind of outline for our writers. Are we hitting the right topics? And then comes the draft. And then reviewing the draft is, again, a collaborative process. It involves multiple people. Like I said, if it's a little too technical, then, we would lean on some of our technical engineers or like support engineers to help us figure out if we're saying this the right way. We would lean on our product marketers to make sure that we're plugging in Nextiva at the right places with the right kind of use cases. And then comes like the UX, making sure that the CTAs make sense, the readability is great, the page speed, load time is great, things like that. So it's just I don't know if I were to try and give you an answer to that, maybe like 10 to 12 hours of production time. But of course, it's not in one go, it's spread out over weeks. Yeah. And it involves a lot of people. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a whole creative process. Cannot
Yeah.
be done in a day.
Yeah.
Um, so, for example, if you were to look at your day to day,
Mhm.
as an SEO specialist, how do you spend your time, or how does a day look like in the life of Alina Benny?
Yeah, I intentionally try to not call myself an SEO specialist if I can help it, because I don't have a technical SEO background.
Okay.
And I hate admitting it because it makes me like gives me huge imposter syndrome. Like a lot of my peers in the industry, they come from agency backgrounds, so they have a lot of innate abilities to just kind of go through log files, or like they know HTML or like Python in their sleep, and they can talk about it all day. And like for me, the skill that I've been working on has been to communicate with the developers and like understand these different SERP updates that come along. So I call myself more of a content optimization and on-page SEO person,
Okay.
um, which is still SEO, thank God. um, which I feel like is more sometimes soft skills rather than these different hard skills that a technical SEO person comes with. So my day is a lot of creative research around what the competitors are doing, how our different pages are doing in terms of like conversions, how are they doing in terms of engagement on that particular page. My number all day, any day, apart from organic traffic, is that MQL to SQL conversion percentage,
Mhm.
and how we're affecting the bottom line. There's no kidding. Like that's the number that demand generation at Nextiva is accountable for.
Okay.
And so, like, if I were to break it up, I would say content optimization in all kinds of formats. Be it landing pages or blogs or ebooks, anything. I do a ton of keyword research just to make sure that even with our AdWords strategy or with our blog strategy, it's all tied in, and we have a
Mhm.
cohesive process. On page SEO, when on my lighter days for our blogs, that's what I do. I am fully in charge of our landing page production at Nextiva. So
Mhm.
every landing page that you see coming out, especially the ones that bring in high intent, high traffic audiences, I'm in charge of that. A ton of design and dev collaboration. Again, like
Mhm.
we don't operate as a silo, and that never works. So I work very closely with our marketing engineers as well as our designers to ship anything out. And then finally, I think at least 2 or 3 times a week, we're heavily focused on analytics and conversion reporting,
Mhm.
looking at landing pages that convert, what the numbers are, how are our PPC pages doing, what blogs are bringing us high intent traffic, things like that. So yeah.
Wow. Very interesting. I mean, eh, very interesting. So we talked about blogs, but there's multiple different types of contents that different companies use. Content's
Mhm.
changing very quickly. So have you thought about tapping into different styles of content? Like, do you see content? How do you see content changing in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to speak authoritatively about this because uh, trends keep changing. Like just to give you an example, when I think around from October every year, October until Jan is when every publication and like every blog out there is talking about trends that, trends this, and like audio is the next big thing, and video is also going to be big, and voice search is going to be taking up everybody's time. But if I've identified a pattern, it's just a few of these things that tend to be sticking.
Mhm.
Number one is just kind of like no matter what you produce, people tend to believe if there is brand uniformity, like in whatever you do, be
Mhm.
it your website messaging to what you're producing on your blog, to what your leadership is saying on social, to like all of your employees, what are they talking about on social. Credibility right now is just kind of like all over the place. Like it's not coming just from one single source. It's
Mhm.
from all these different places. So I feel like any content that you produce, be it text, video, webinars or like podcasts, events, it needs to tie down into one or two core
Right.
ideas that your brand stands for.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter how you produce that content, because I feel like people are consuming content from everywhere. It could be a tweet, it could be a newsletter. Like, people are going all out and doing all kinds of types of content. I'm seeing like new newsletters pop up every day, and that's a way of establishing credibility as well. And we've experimented with video content, a ton of like animated LinkedIn ads. I wouldn't say there's like one thing that's been working for us apart from content. It's kind of a mixture of everything. And, attribution's always been a problem inside of marketing. And so just saying that just this one thing seems to be working really well for us, I would say hasn't happened. But I've also noticed that the more consistent you are with anything, like the moment we started consistently publishing on our blog, the moment we started consistently posting on our social channels, there was a gradual uplift in every way. And that applies to, I would say, if we were to start creating more B2C like videos today for Nextiva, and we did that consistently for the next 12 months, I'm pretty sure we will see results. And that's the beauty of marketing too, like you can literally invent a category, put in enough like experimentation and like create a nice feedback loop, and you're keeping on iterating. I feel like you will see results. And that's how like every company out there came up with these so-called growth hacks. They aren't really hacks if you think about it. It's just a new idea that somebody came about with, and they built on it, and then other people started adopting it.
Sure. Yeah. So consistency and strong brand, essentially aligned branding.
Yeah, and you could use, like I was saying, you could use literally any channel to be successful. I know marketers who go all out on, again, going back to the brand building part of it. Some people do exclusively video, and they're known for their video, and then like they're known for their video content. Others focus their energies on newsletter production, so they're known for their video newsletter production skills, or like how the consistency with which they tackle topics inside of any industry that they're in. Some other people, to give you a few examples, like Kevin Indig is one person that I follow who he has laser sharp focus on his technical SEO newsletter, TechBound. Whereas Eddie from G2, he does these micro interviews on his website called Very Good Copy. And so just kind of figuring out what your channel is and just making it stand out, improving it, and then building on top of that is going to make you stand out. Yeah.
That's some good advice for anybody listening. Okay. So since this event is called Startup Impact Summit, we're going to focus a little bit on startups. In terms of freelancers, do you believe it's better to hire freelancers for SEO and content marketing? Or do you think it's better to have in-house teams, given limited resources that startups have?
Right. I get this question a lot more than you think. And I've been in both kinds of companies. I mean, Freshworks was huge. There are about 3,000 people today. Sales Hacker was literally 5 people. And then at Nextiva, we're kind of in the middle. We're like 1,000 plus folks at the company. So I've worked with all kinds of budgets. I've worked with all kinds of team setups. And I think what's worked best that I've noticed is to have an internal gatekeeper no matter what. You can hire as many freelancers, or you can have, an entire design team that's outsourced, or, a development team that's outsourced as well. But as long as there is one person in charge of managing these different teams and is held accountable for their productivity and their pipeline, it's bound to work. But whenever I've seen a founder struggling with content creation, and they hit me up and they're like, Alina, how do I do it? Like, you keep talking about organic traffic and you've gotten such great results from your blog. How do you do it? You think I can do it if I hire 5 of your best writers? I'm like, no, you won't be able to do it, because there's so many things that happen in the background that we don't talk about. There's, like I was saying, so much collaboration with dev and design need to happen. So much content tuning as well as content review happens internally. And no matter how many freelancers you hire, no one knows your brand like you do, and no one knows the technical accuracies like you do. So I would heavily discourage founders, especially from startups, to just outsource all of your content to somebody from outside, because they won't get it like you would. So if that is the only way that you can go forward, then make sure that you have one marketer who understands these things from a high level. They don't have to be an expert, but at least, like I was saying, if they're able to communicate with these different teams saying, you know what, this is what we want, and this is the goal that we're measuring you against, and let's try different experiments. I think that's the wonderful thing about being in a startup, is that there's a lot of less pressure on experimentation. Like you have free rein on what you can do. So for me, like what can unlock a lot of opportunities is to have an internal gatekeeper or two to make sure that though your outsourced team or your freelance team is on the right track.
So we're not just giving them a word count.
No, that never works.
Okay, so just for our audience, give us a tip from your playbook. How do you optimize content? What is something you swear by?
This is something I've learned the hard way. It's just take time. Take time to do, even if it's just a quick landing page review, like a copy review, or if it's a blog post. Yeah, volume matters to an extent, but just take time to make sure that you're doing those few extra things to refine your headlines or like make your copy shorter. Are you just think about user experience, just zoom out a little bit. I know it sounds very fluffy and very high level when I say it this way, but a lot of times when you get so engrossed in the whole hustle of being a marketer and producing results, you tend to speed up a lot of things. I'm not saying you should be a perfectionist, but every now and then, whenever I do take about 12 hours on a landing page, those landing pages have turned out to be really, really great. And those are the ones that Gaetano goes, okay, wow, Alina, that's fire, fire, fire. Like, do more of those. And I'm like, yeah, I want to, but that took me 12 hours. And those kind of just giving yourself like those 12, 15 hours sometimes to work on one single project, no matter how basic it is or it seems. That's when you will do, at least that's when I get my creative juices going. I do extra research on just kind of like the language, because you get so caught up in the whole B2B dry, simple conversational language. Sometimes you forget how refined English sounds. I take some time to just go through some of my favorite newsletters, just look at their language, the kind of puns they use, and how they make data sound interesting. I go through like a lot of different like lifestyle publications about how they present content. This expands the way you think. Apart from just focusing on content that's meant for search engines, you start thinking more creatively. And the nice part about me being in that position is that my CEO pushes me to do that as well. Thomas is very very particular about sounding human, as well as sounding we understand our customers. So this is kind of ingrained in our process now, and it's I like that they push me to spend more time researching on that could be something I could push out in an hour or two. But I would just say, like, to anybody out there who's been in marketing for a while, who feels like, these are the things that I'm specializing in, I can do these things faster. And that happens as you progress in your career. Like, sometimes what took you 4 days to do initially when you were starting out could take you just about 4 hours today. But take that extra time to just kind of get into the weeds. And Gaetano does this on a weekly basis. He sits down with me, and like we have these video chats where we're going through landing page by landing page. And like, I'm amazed at how at his level, like at a director level, he's still able to get down into the weeds and like work with us through that kind of a thing. And that's something that I want to take forward in my career as well, whenever I become a leader. So yeah,
for sure.
Take your time.
I mean, you are appealing to humans. At the end of the day, all your content is consumed by them,
Right.
so that makes perfect sense for sounding human. On this topic, lastly, for the audience, how can people get in touch with you? How are you? I mean, they really, I'm assuming they want to hear more.
Sure, yeah. I am on LinkedIn. I think that's the best place to get in touch with me. Twitter too is cool if you just want to have a quick chat, but no emails. But LinkedIn is perfect.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alina. This was amazing. Thank you for your flexibility and the odd hours. And this was amazing.
Thanks for having me, Sakshi. I'm so excited to see this go live.
Yes.